So, given its long tradition, we've been able to consolidate dates and events that occur year after year. The festival that we are presenting today is one of such events. So, as you know, the International Fair for the Performing Arts includes more than 200 events for all kinds of audiences. But as such, we're offering a more global view of this, and it does so through different meetings, presentations, awards, what have you. So it is a pleasure to be able to inaugurate this 9th international meeting. The slogan for which is Creative Paths in the Performing Arts for Young Audiences, bringing together different international professionals from the performing arts sector. In this 9th edition, we have guests from Chile, UK, Finland, Belgium, and the aim is to gain an understanding of their projects and what they're currently doing in the area of performing arts for families in other parts of Europe and around the world. So understanding the realities and pooling our information serves to inspire all the professionals who work in FETEN. Today will include an exhibit from the participating entities, as well as an exhibit that allows for reflection, and this will be open after the midday break. I would like to thank the Spanish organizations for their collaboration another year in this project in FETEN in Spain, for their support of our meeting. So I would finish as I began, welcoming you to Gijón, to this meeting, to all of the attendees, and we hope that you will enjoy today's inspiring events. I will now turn the floor over to Idoia. Idoia Ruiz de Lara. Thank you very much, Montserrat, and we appreciate your greeting, and on behalf of FETEN, I would like to thank each and every one of you and to promote a little bit of enjoyment, because as Montserrat said, these meetings are very important to us, and we want to come away feeling very inspired and having created connections and collaboration amongst us. So we'll begin with our first intervention from Tanya Turpenin, who's been working very hard, and Bravo Festival in Finland. Tanya, we're very happy to have you, and the floor is yours.
Buenos días a todos.
Good morning.
Tanya Turpeinen. I'm going to speak now in English, this presentation. I'm presenting you Bravo Festival, which is the Finland's biggest international performing arts festival for young audiences. Here you see our logo. So I am the festival director of Bravo Festival and also the general manager of FETEN Finland. And FETEN Finland is the main organizer behind Bravo Festival in collaboration with the cities of Helsinki metropolitan area. So first I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the festival. So Bravo is a performing arts festival for young audiences. It's organized mainly in cultural centers in 4 different cities, in different districts in these cities, but we also collaborate with other venues. And it's the cities, 4 cities, they form a Helsinki metropolitan area, which is quite fancy for such a small country like Finland, but that's how it's called. And the festival, it takes place every other year in March, always during the International Children's Theatre Day. So the program that we have, it includes theatre, circus, dance, participatory theatre, cross-disciplinary art events, workshop, talks and seminars. But because it is an international festival, we have a little bit of a focus on non-verbal performances like circus and dance maybe. But we always have different genres represented. And our aim is to bring kind of new performances to Finland that are not seen so often in the Finnish scene. And our audience is really the kids and the youth. So we collaborate a lot with the kindergartens and the schools. And because the venues are mainly cultural centers, so they are really like in the neighborhoods where the children live. So they have good connections with the children around these venues. This means that the festival is more like for the children and youth than for the professionals, but lately, during the whole history, but lately also we've taken more focus in the professional program and to facilitate more of this cultural exchange between the professionals, between Finnish and international professionals. So we always have performances from babies to teenagers. So we have at least one baby performance and one performance for youth, and then like they're in between for all ages. And the festival is organized by ACITES Finland, which is an association of performing arts for young audiences, and the cities of the Helsinki metropolitan area. I'm going to talk about this a bit more later. And the festival was established in year 2000, and it was established on an already existing model called Theatre Week, in which the cities already collaborated with each other. And the 2000 was the year when Helsinki was the capital of culture, European capital of culture. So the festival was funded really with EU money. So we had a lot of money to start with and to create a good base for the festival. I have here a small teaser that I could show. This is a teaser of last year's festival. It's really like small, it's aimed to be shown in buses and so on. So, just briefly about ACITES Finland. We are part of international ACITES network, which is probably known for everyone here. It's the world's largest performing arts network for young audiences, and we're the Finnish department of this network. And we turn 50 this year as the international network turns 60. So ACITES Finland was founded in 1975. And this is our mission here, that we want to promote the visibility of performing arts for children and young people and strengthen a sustainable, diverse and inclusive field of performing arts for young audiences. So that's our goal, what we aim to do. And our members are mainly theatres, groups and organisations, but we do have a few individual members as well working for, and all of these are somehow working in performing arts for young audiences. But we have, our members really range from the Finnish National Theatre to small freelancer groups and everything in between here there. We have about 80 members. And this is a Bravo in numbers, and it maybe explains a bit of nature of Bravo, that we program like 6 to 10 performances. It's not so much for a 10-day festival, but really each performance should have multiple presentations during the festival, because it's really a bit like a tour for the groups that come to the festivals, because they go from one city to another, and because the venues are in different districts in the cities, they could have like also 2 performances in the same city but in a different kind of venue or in a different venue. And we have about 50 to 20 venues, and they really are like, some of the cultural centers, for example, have big stages with full technical equipment, and they're really like, they can cater for big shows. And then we have small venues, like smaller centers that don't have so much, for example, technique. So we always have to also think when we program that we need these wow shows, big shows, but we also need the small intimate shows that can that don't need so much technique and that can like go into smaller venues. And then we always have like we always collaborate with other venues than the cultural center, like Circo, the Center of New Circus, for example, has been our collaboration partner, and Children's Hospital. We brought performances to Children's Hospital, libraries, old people's homes, and so on. So there are like various collaboration partners. And we reach about 5,000 to 6,000 children and youth, which is quite a lot for Finland, which is a small country. And we have like 50 to 30 cooperation partners, and we calculate here our venues, but also a lot of other networks and festivals and other kind of collaboration partners that we collaborate with. So Bravo feels a different kind of festival than many festivals because it doesn't have one festival center. And that's why we've been really working lately to have more like this togetherness and feeling of a festival, to have like a sense of kind of togetherness, because the artists, they can be in Finland for 10 days and they can travel from one venue to another venue and maybe not even meet each other, or most likely they don't meet each other if we don't organize possibilities for this. Briefly about how we curate is that the staff and the board of Asetes Finland, they form a selection committee and we pre-choose performances. But then the venues, they have their own cultural producers, so they can choose like what they want. And so we always, the final program is something that we agree upon. And because one performance should be presented at least in 2 different venues. So we always need more than one venue interested in the performance for it to be chosen for the festivals. And then we can also push and promote certain type of performances that we want to, and if we can provide financial support, then they are, of course, the venues are more eager to take them, because they pay all the fees and they provide the technical staff and so on. So we don't do this. And the program is released only 2 months before the festival, but the internal deadline is way earlier. I write here like 5 to 6 months, but it can be earlier as well, that we have to have the program ready. The next festival will be in 2024 from, I forgot to put it here, but from the 14th to 22nd of March. And I wanted to write here also about our collaboration partners, because our festival is really dependent on these collaborations that we have. We're a small organization, and without these good, vibrant and well-functioning collaborations, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And this is why we are always open for new collaborations, and we are always collaborating with different partners. The main collaborations are, of course, the cities and their cultural centers and their staff in general. And then other Finnish art organization and professionals are also important partners. And then one important partner is Nordic Baltic Asetes Network. It is a network consisting of Asetes centers in 8 different Nordic Baltic countries. And now the festival actually from the beginning of this year got funding, so we are able to have our own administration and hired staff, part-time hired staff, and we're able to, because we always collaborate with our festivals, and we organize other different kind of collaboration projects, such as youth residencies in our festivals or happenings in the international Asetes events, like artistic gatherings and World Congress. Or we can have we have had like a Nordic Baltic stage where we represent the Nordic Baltic performances. but now we do have like a 3-year period where we have a funding for the administration in itself, and the office will be in Finland for the next 3 years, and hopefully then it can transfer into somewhere else. And so this means that we have a possibility at least to carry out more project in a more kind of stable manner. And we're going to have a Nordic Baltic focus at Ata Festival in Turkey in 25. We're going to have a regional project in Sweden. It's a residency for young dance artists and things like this, and also have residencies for youth, and we're going to have online seminars and anyway facilitate the connections, building connections and collaboration between the members of these different ACITE centers. And then when we talk about the collaboration partners of Bravo, one important partner is Theatre Academy. We have started, like 3 years ago, we started to collaborate with them. Our aim is, together with people working there, to bring more performing arts for young audiences into the curriculum of Theatre Academy, which is the main art university for performing arts in Finland, and they have very little, almost none, courses for that treat or have like content for performing arts for young audiences. So our aim is really to make performing arts for young audiences normal part of the curriculum of the students studying there. This is like the long-term plan, and it's going to take time. But we have been, like now in the fall, we're going to organize a second time a lecture course, and then during Bravo 26, there's going to be like a intensive course where it's going to be a 2 weeks course for the students studying there, and they're going to create work for young audiences. And yeah, we've had previously this lecture course, and there's a picture. This picture is from a festival campus that we had during last Bravo, where we discussed about topics related to performing arts for young audiences. And then we also collaborate with the Exit the Room Erasmus Plus network, our partner in this network. And this is a network of festivals. It's a 7-year project, so it goes on for quite a long time until 28. It's run by Spleen Festival, and Natasha Grasser from Spleen Festival is here in FETEN as well. And it has like 2 staff mobility and then youth mobility projects in it. So the staff will meet and exchange knowledge, and then we organize kind of youth residencies among these festivals. And then we are currently trying to build a project together with Bibu Festival in Sweden, Showbox Festival in Norway, and with Imaginate and their festival, Edinburgh's International Children's Festival. And this project that we need to still get funding, but I wanted to put it here anyway, aims to facilitate the creation of disabled-led work for young audiences. So it's really for us networks to work as a platform and provide support and money to disabled artists so that they can create their own work for young audiences. And I think this was my brief introduction. So thank you all, and if you want more info, then you can go to our website. Bravo Festival is in English and in Swedish and Finnish, because it's a trilingual festival. So we always cater all those 3 languages. And ACITES Finland is going to have a new website soon, but mainly now it's in Finnish, unfortunately.
Muchísimas gracias, Tania, por tu presentación.
Thank you very much, Tanya, for your presentation. And we will now continue with our next presentation. Ralph Lister from Sparse Plus. And this is going to be a very attractive proposal that we'll see throughout the morning, all of them, the ability all of these colleagues have to really summarize what they're doing. But this is a way to give us an overview of what they're doing so that we can get into further detail in our own conversations by examining these different paths for young people, the creative paths in the performing arts. So we have common points, but one would be the diversity in the different projects in the performing arts for families that are being conducted in the different countries. So
Recordaros que
remember, please, that each of our speakers will make a short presentation, then we'll have a brief coffee break, which, in addition to being grateful for the food, of course, but we can also get to know each other better. And then we'll come together and we'll be able to share a little bit more conversations. So, Ralph, if everything's okay, here we go.
Can you hear me?
Gracias.
Okay, great. So my name is Ralph Lister. I'm from the UK. I'm representing the project called Sparse Plus, which is supporting and promoting arts in rural settlements of Europe. I wanted to thank Idoia for the invitation to come to FETEN. I'm really glad to be here to see some fantastic work. I wanted to say thank you to Natalia and the rest of the team because there have been quite a few logistics and everything has been very, very smooth, very perfect, so thank you. This is an image from an Italian dance company. Right, so to put the work that we do in some sort of context, according to Eurostat, nearly 30% of the population of Europe live in a rural area. So one of the questions it would be interesting to ask ourselves, does 30% of national and European cultural expenditure, is it committed to delivering culture in rural areas? We think the answer is probably not. It's quite an invisible kind of area of work. Some of you, all of you may or may not be familiar with the idea of, I mean, we know that culture is everywhere, so we're not emissaries that are trying to bring culture to cultural deserts. We know that culture exists everywhere. But within the cultural field, work in rural areas is not so visible. What's interesting is that in the last few years, there is more interest among policymakers and European networks to look at this particular subject. So, for example, in the middle, there is a publication from IETM, Arts in Rural Areas. There was, in 2019, there was an event called Culture Crops, which was organised by Culture Action Europe and one or two other organisations which I attended. And the Goethe Institute had one of their Voices of Culture platforms where they looked at the role of culture in non-urban areas of the European Union. What I find peculiar is this term non-urban. It's like, why don't we just call it rural? Why do we have to be non-urban? Why do we have to position ourselves against the metropolitan centre all the time? So, Sparse Plus. So there were two projects. There was Sparse from 2018 to 21, and Take Art, the organisation I represent from the UK. We were the lead partners, but as you know, because of Brexit, we were no longer to be a beneficiary. So we worked with AMAT, who are an Italian organisation based in Ancona, and they became the lead partner. And we have a second project, Sparse Plus, which it runs from 2023 to 2027. So we have 11 partners from 9 countries. Czech Republic, Estonia, Germany, Hungary, we have 2 partners, Italy 2 partners, Lithuania, Poland, Romania, and Sweden. So the network is growing. In the first project, we have 5 partners. This project, we have 11. And for me, this is a forever project. Not because of needing money, but the idea that there can be high quality work being taken to rural areas is something that should be permanent. It should be a an ongoing project. If there's a quote on, in terms of when we made the application to Creative Europe, on the top right, if you look, our focus was around innovation by the transferring and dissemination of good practices and relevance. And I'll explain a little bit about that process in a moment. The priorities were reaching rural communities and tackling social exclusion, and also developing a sustainable touring ecology, which I will talk about later as well. There's a screen grab there from the SPARS website. So in terms of what we are going to do, we have a budget of €1.5 million from Creative Europe. There'll be 150 performances over 3 years with 50 shows a year. We're developing resources, so we have toolkits, which is for artists and local promoters interested in rural touring. For some of you that may be interested, we have a rural touring symposium in Prague this coming October. The main day will be on the 8th of October, but it extends over 2 days. We've commissioned research into arts funding in rural areas in Europe because we feel the research is missing at the moment, so we want to fill that gap. We want to look at reasons why artists might find it challenging to tour in rural areas. We have an advocacy program, so coming to events like this. We have an evaluation, and at the end of the project, we're going to be creating a new rural touring network organisation across Europe. And as you can see, we're a very friendly group of people. We are a bit like a family. We meet by Zoom, but when we meet face to face, it's really good to. And some of you are, well, I can see Bebby is one of our partners. So what is rural touring? So the aim is to provide access to high quality arts experiences in rural communities. And it's also to support the social cohesion of rural communities. It's not to be seen in isolation. So the events that take place are as much a social event as they are a cultural event. In the middle, the heart of rural touring is a relationship between the rural touring organisation, the partners that you saw before, and the local volunteer promoter. And I'll talk a little bit about that person. And it's not about artistic compromise. Don't imagine for a moment that if you're coming to a rural area, it's about second best, it's about low quality, it's about audiences not being able to distinguish between what is good and what is not so good. So the context is that, so the agencies, the partners, they work with local volunteers and they support them to develop a cultural offer. And these local promoters are like champions, they're ambassadors, they live in the area in which we're working. So we want to work with them to develop the taste, the range of program that the local village might want to program. And a lot of the artists enjoy the challenge of working in small spaces, and it does require, it's demanding, and artists need to be flexible, and an appreciation that the majority of spaces are not theatres. We work in community spaces. It could be churches, it could be village halls, it can be outdoor spaces. Who are the artists? Here is a screen grab from, if you go to the website, you can see a list of all the different companies. So each partner develops a menu that the promoters choose from. And we work predominantly in the performing arts. So, who is in the audience? So all ages. I know the focus for this festival is around family and theatre for young audiences. I took this image, this is from a village where I work, where we had a dance company, and you can see this show was by a brilliant dance company called Protein, and the show was about food, and the show was called May Contain Food. And part of the performance was the baking of a cake, and we arranged a cabaret style, so the performance took place in the middle, so you can see the performers are in the audience, as it were. Typical village hall, you can see that it's a small space with lovely curtains, with floral patterns, very convivial. On the other side, there's a show from Poland from one of our partners called Art Fraction. And this is a show for under fives. It's a really beautiful show called Kuki, and it was made in association with a Japanese youth theatre. So they toured as part of a project, which I'll mention in a moment. As well as performance, there is participation activities as well. So I think these images are from Romania. So not only do the artists come and make performances, but if we can make the experience longer and deeper, then this is something that we're really keen on. Again, there's an image on the right of different buildings that we work with across different countries. The main picture is of a cultural building in Romania, taken from the first SPARS project. So I mentioned the local promoter. This person is absolutely essential. It may be one person, or it may be a small group of people living in the area. So most rural communities will have an individual who will work with some volunteers, and they want to have quite high-quality events in their village. What unites them is they want to keep their village alive and kicking. And without this network of volunteers, rural touring could not happen. Most organisations, most partners are really small. So my organisation runs a touring programme with maybe 2 staff. So we work with maybe 30 villages in my area. So if you can imagine, without having a network of volunteers, it just would not be possible. It's quite interesting to see the link with the idea of cooperating. The previous speaker talked in Finland about quite often, if you're a small organisation, you need to cooperate. You can't do things on your own. And who are the local promoters? So here we have an image of, again, taken from the website. Their responsibility is, so we produce, what is really important is the village chooses the show. We don't say to them, this is your show. We create a menu for each area. So they will choose from the menu. They will promote and market the show to their audience. And the main vehicle of marketing is word of mouth. It's very low tech. So they will go to people in the village, say, come and see the show, you'll have a great time, we'll have some food, you'll see your neighbours. So again, that social, to separate culture from social activity is just crazy. You know, it's kind of, the sense of community, the sense of relationship between audience and artists is so integral to this kind of work. And on the day, our promoters, they will host the audience, the artist. And sometimes they will arrange the venue, so dressing the venue. Everyone gets very nervous. Oh, the artists are coming to see us. We feed the artist. Sometimes the artist stays afterwards in the village if they're on tour. And then finally, we arrange audience feedback. So evaluation is a really important part of our project. Unless you have the evidence to support the work that you do, we can have films, we can have photographs, but evaluation, I've been working with an evaluator in England for 20, 30 years now, and she always says, you must have your evaluation in place before you start the project. So we've just completed the evaluation for the first year tours, which had just been completed, and we ask the audience to complete paper surveys, and they go uploaded on SurveyMonkey. We ask the local promoters and the artists to give us feedback as well. And this evidence is really important if we want to go and look for further funding. So after year 1, as I said, word of mouth, you can see that we had responses from 1,500 audience members. So, you know, they understood the importance of gathering this information. So what can we say? So in terms of local audience carbon impact, 2/3 of the audience live less than 5 kilometres. So we really are working with the local audience. There's a report called, I'm trying to remember now. There was a meeting 2 years ago, and the carbon footprint, the biggest carbon footprint is not from the artists, it's from the audience. So the idea is you bring the artist to the audience and you have a lower carbon. So, and 1/3 walked, and when you include those that cycled, half the audience came in this way to see the show. Really high experience from the audience in terms of what they felt about the quality of the show. And again, new audiences. 2/3 of the audience had not attended an event in other venues in the previous year. So we know that our work reaches either an audience that doesn't go anywhere else or doesn't go very often. And what did the artists think? I guess most of you are artists, so this may be, or producers or programmers, so this may interest you. So even though we're working in non-professional spaces, 95%, virtually all the artists were happy with the quality of the show. We had feedback from 35 different companies of the 50 that toured. So most were happy with the quality of the show. They felt they had a close relationship with the audience. They thought that wraparound, we call workshops, Q&A, wraparound activities, they thought that was important. There's a quote, "A conversation with the public after the show is absolutely key for the connection to the public in the long run." 100% are interested in doing more rural touring, and over half found more work as a result, directly or indirectly, as a result of the project. I don't know if you're aware of, I guess you are, Perform Europe. So because we have this network of partners, we were able to put a program together. It's a little bit complicated. But we're touring 3 works, one from Germany, one from Lithuania, and one from Poland. And the title of the project is Bringing Family Theatre to Villages Across Europe. So having this rural network creates more opportunity in other situations. And we're working with 6 countries, the Czech Republic, Germany, Hungary, Italy, Lithuania, and Poland. I mentioned toolkits. So again, creating resources that is useful for the artists and for local promoters. There's one here there's one from Estonia, one from Romania, and then one from Italy. So the symposium in the Czech Republic in Prague, we're going to invite 100 delegates to debate social inclusion, sustainability, children and youth engagement. We want to invite policymakers and funders. Potentially, there may be new partners that are interested in joining from. Currently, we don't have a partner in Spain, so it'd be very nice if we did have a partner in Spain. We did actually have a partner from Mallorca in the very first application. But when the project was successful, there were political situation and the partner had to withdraw from the project. And we also want to connect with other organisations like In Situ, which is a Horizon project, and ENCC, European Network of Cultural Centres. And then in 2026, we have a final conference in Hungary. And that will be to plan the future, to disseminate project outputs, which the creative union love. We're going to create a new organisation and then maybe make a third application if people have the energy and they're not exhausted. So thank you very much. This is my email address, website for SPARS, the Facebook, the Instagram, blah, blah, blah. Thank you.
Ahora, muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Ralph, for this very detailed presentation. So now we will hear from Gabriela Bravo. She's the Executive Secretary for Performing Arts in Chile. So when you're ready. Great. We've created a very diverse set here, and each one can choose how they feel most comfortable. And so using our tools. Perfect. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm very grateful for this invitation. I'll try to stick to the time allowed. My name is Gabriela. I'm working in the international coordination of the Executive Secretariat for Performing Arts. And what I'm going to show you right now has to do more with presenting a stage, so to speak, more than anything in particular. Natalia will help me to show you this video, which has to do with an overview of the scene in Chile, kind of beyond the different projects. And of course, if you're interested, I can definitely put you in touch with the different projects. First of all, the role of the Executive Secretary of the Performing Arts, the Ministry of Culture, Art and Heritage. And so we've seen how this institutional role is also, I also bring my own personal artistic experience to this, working with young people and the performing arts, and I think this is relevant. I think it's important to understand and also to make you aware of what's going on in terms of artistic educational policy and what we're doing in Chile with respect to this creation. I'll probably be kind of dispersed, but basically at the end of the day, we're talking about what characterizes performance for different young publics. It's multidimensional and with all different factors because of the audience and the associations as well. So I would like to mention that here in this project, we find Chilean people. Daniela is here, I think. Or Daniela was directing. And it's also important to take account of the different installations that they set up and set everything in its proper context in Chile. So from the institution and from what we've been able to see in the management in recent years, we've witnessed a growing interest in family performing arts amongst artists, managers, educators, what have you, and recognizing that children and young people, not only as an audience, but also having a right to their own active role in the artistic and cultural ecosystem. And so this is being manifested in public policy, and it also has to do with Chile is currently undergoing with an updating activity, so to speak, of the public policy regarding artistic and cultural creation and the teaching performing arts in the classrooms. And this is very, very relevant because it poses a certain challenge for the community, of course, but also the educational community and the members of that community. So I feel I have to point out that this is a reality in much of Latin America, and the artistic community has kind of been relegated to spaces where tests are not standardized, but it's kind of second class, if you will. And so an exercise that we are trying to carry out has to do with artistic activity as well and what's being created for young people and for adult audiences as well. On the Chilean stage, we can see how it's kind of been relegated to a second-class citizenship, so to speak, and it becomes diffuminated, and it falls to the creators. Now, obviously, there's a clear diagnosis here. It needs to be articulated amongst the community and the educational community to be able to confront the challenge of dealing with different competences in the family and the communities and being present in the classroom. So this is the challenge that our country is facing. It has to do with the massification of these policies and how we can share and make these policies or performing arts projects available in the classrooms. So I think another situation, I'm sure this is happening other places, has to do with the decentralization of educational areas, metropolitan areas in Chile in particular. As you know, Chile is a very elongated country, so it has a very vast territory. So north to south, it's quite large. And there's an excessive centralization, excuse me, both in terms of education as well as the offer that's being programmed. So this is something that we have to find our way through. And this is taking advantage of earlier projects and looking at how they can interact with educational programming. So I would like to point out that there are many projects here that focus on children and young people from the very outset. There are different festivals that have been in place for many years. The International Festival of the FAMFest, Family Festival. This is the 16th edition this year. And they have different stages upon which they can create. And we can see, and it's been supporting creation, artistic creation. But in the fund for the performing arts has also increased its participation and receiving the awards for different projects that address children in particular with different lines of creation. With the initial productions this year, we funded a specific production for the LBGT young people. And so this is, again, contemplated as a decentralized project, and we'll have to watch this and accompany it, of course, as well as supporting it economically. In this regard, there are other areas in southern Chile where different festivals are being held that focus specifically on the academic atmosphere. So from the schoolyard to schoolyard, it's an itinerant kind of project. This also has to do with the infrastructure that is available for creation. And again, there's an original nature to all of this. On the other hand, this focus, which has been promoted by the creators, I have to say that the ministry is like kind of a very heavy elephant, so to speak, and it lumbers along with a much more agile area, which is artistic creation. And we want to see how this festival started out focusing on children and young people, and how in this artistic research they've been discovered by young people. A clear example of this has to do with the very rigorous works and creation, Aranua, Los Fi, La Compañía de la Negra María, Collective Enredaderas, y La Payaya, etc. So tremendous diversity of experiences, and we can see all of this put into context. And there are also companies that have been discovering creation for young people. Here we have Tiro Banda, La Llave Maestra, Silencio Blanco, Teatro Cinema, and many others, of course. And so the early childhood is also being focused on for immersive experiences. Now here I would like to point out the premise, which again has been discovered, which is focusing on childhood on the one hand, and also highlighting something which is kind of a veil, which when we think about young people in terms of economic funds, so when we delve deeper into the commercial aspect of things, in Chile I think we are at the fore of creating this amalgam of understanding childhood and children as entitled to certain rights and not simply a market to be sold to. And so, Ben, this, I think, has been a position that's been adopted by artists over the course of the last 15 years. So we have to also consider how internationally the performing arts are appearing in the streets, outdoors, with the families, and in fact, meetings and festivals that have been kind of long-standing, and how they've discovered that in the public space, with a common policy, creating a space for families. So it is there in the public square, so to speak, that has become a place to host these events and to host families and children, which is where our audience lives. And this, therefore, is where they are present. So in this regard, Santiago Mil Festival creates a program for the public square, thinking of the family and young people as kind of a democracy and making access to culture as more democratic, and children's right to have access to this, to the cultural life in general. So where we are working as a secretariat this year, in 2019, the law for performing arts was set up, and so it creates a framework for our secretariat. However, we must highlight the fact that the International Festival of Performing Arts has created the first plan for nationalization, and it has generated its guidelines for strategic participation and seeing how the ministry can accompany these different initiatives, not only in terms of projects that are subject to public contract and funding, and how cultural support is being articulated, but also from the National Board for the Performing Arts can see how together they can create strategic spaces for performing arts. And children play a major role in this because the secretariats set up all of their arts. And this appears, and we can see this how your young people and children are relating to dance and performing arts in general. And it would seem, too, that the girls and boys elevate and articulate their message, and this enriches the multidisciplinary nature of this offering. So it's very different from contemplating the children as their role, but instead bearing them in mind when developing their companies. And just to finish up, there are certain milestones that have been supported by the public policy that has to do with these festival circuits, so to speak. This year, we had an interesting project where there was a company that accompanied people in Cuba. And so this year we will therefore also participate in ACITER. And we can see how young people and funding are coming into the space of the institutions. And in this way, there is a genuine interest on the part of the programmers, the artists, and well-known people or celebrities in Chile. And there are long-term challenges as well, and I would like to name the ones that the National Performing Arts Educational Directorate poses, bearing in mind the need to coordinate the project and understand and incorporate culture for the personal and social development, strengthening the collaboration and presence in cultural events. And so here I am very interested in hearing any experiences that you might have in terms of systematizing, if you have databases or things like that that can help with the circuits of these different representations and shows. And so this has to do with the public sphere, both qualitatively and quantitatively, and how to what position to adopt within these contexts. So I would like to point out then that both the festivals are programming more and more family content, and they're also setting up their stages in the public square. And this is important because the companies are also so important. They do this for the adults, but I think it's also important, even more so when we talk about young people and children. This was pretty much what I wanted to share with you. And the public vocation of what's being done on the scene in Chile and at an international level. So thank you very much for your attention.
Muchas gracias, Gabriela. La verdad es que es muy bonito ver.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting to see how we're traveling from one point to another in the world and what you're showing us of the different projects. So now we will hear from our fourth and final participants in the morning, Ariel, Melanie, and Alejandro. And they are from CCN, which is the Namur Cultural Center. And I can see that you're taking pictures of the presentations. They are also being streamed, and they will also be available on our YouTube channel. Because it's always interesting to be able to go back, or if we want to share it with other colleagues. So everything will be available with their subtitles. And so FETEN would like to thank our extra personnel who are helping us with the streaming to make this available online as well, because they've done an absolutely impeccable job of doing this. So again, you can hear this on YouTube and revisit them. these presentations as much as you would like.
Gracias.
Mis colegas van a presentaros.
My colleagues will make the presentation in French, and I'll do what I can to present it in Spanish. We are from Belgium, from a city called Namur, and we're working for an institution which is a theater and cultural center at the same time. And we work in the cultural center. So we will present a short video.
C'est la plus ancienne histoire. C'est là que tout a commencé.
Esto es el Centro Cultural.
This is the cultural center that we were referring to.
Y este es el teatro.
This is the theater.
Il est temps dès à présent que tu remettes tes pieds sur la terre.
Qu'est-ce que c'est aujourd'hui l'amour?
Palabras.
Aucun homme ne résiste.
Palabras.
Nous aimons tous la vie.
Palabras.
Alors, comment, en fait, dans notre théâtre et centre culturel, on a trois missions.
Tenemos tres misiones.
We have three missions for the cultural center and the Namur Theatre. First of all, in the cultural center, we work particularly on missions to attract culture to people who are not destined, so to speak, to discover it on their own. So we have many collaborative projects. We also have a Center for Performing Arts, which is focused on artistic creation, production, and co-production of shows for young people and the public, the audiences at large. And we have a CNN or sorry, CEC, as it's known there, which is the Center for Expression and Creativity. And they hold workshops throughout the year. They have specific courses for young people, adults, photography, seriography, theatre, dance, circus, etc. An important part of our activities have to do with hosting and creating shows for the young audiences. Every year we program more than 35 shows and 80 performances for schools and families in our 3 different theatres. One in the cultural center itself and the other 2 in the theater.
Et tous les 3 ans, nous organisons un festival qui s'appelle le Festival Turbulence, où là, nous avons l'occasion d'accueillir des productions étrangères. Et on organise ça avec une association, une autre association, qui est EPILA, le Centre scénique de Wallonie pour l'enfance et la jeunesse.
Ariel os contaba.
Ariel was saying that she is a programmer and a mediator, but particularly from kids who are 0 to 12 years. Mariel takes care of the older children, adolescents, basically. So throughout the year, there are things going on. And we have lots of shows for school people. School kids throughout the year, and they take place all over the place. We also organize snacks for Wednesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays for the families. And we also, and workshops for parents and their kids, and what they call the edge of the stage, or the stage edge. Likewise, there is 1 week during the year that is dedicated wholly to early childhood, and a family day in collaboration with the many social and cultural associations that belong to Namur. We also have a program for decentralization of the shows, so that 14 different schools that are outside of the city can also see the performances. Every 3 years, we organize an international festival, which is called Turbulencias. And it hosts companies from all the different spheres and disciplines, dance, circus, puppeting. And we program this together with EGLA, which is the Performing Arts Center for Valwan for Children and Young People.
Donc on va vous montrer. Ouais.
Attends, je fais ici.
Festival Turbulence.
Las imágenes que veis aquí son de este año, porque Este año lo tuvimos, bueno, en 2024.
Je peux parler? Voilà, on vient vous montrer le
Sí.
un festival international. Vous avez peut-être vu Vida, reconnu Vida, qu'on a accueilli cette année au mois de novembre.
Hemos,
We hosted a show that received an award in 2019.
Tout horizon et de toute discipline, on essaye vraiment de montrer aux enfants la création contemporaine d'aujourd'hui, dans toutes ses formes.
se intenta, pues,
So we try to make our messages diverse, as well as the different styles of the shows, the different types of shows that we hold.
in- in-
On essaye à chaque fois de préparer le festival Turbulence avec le public, donc on va vers les enfants, vers les associations, vers des adultes également. Et pour ça, on travaille avec
Un artiste, et cette année, on a travaillé avec une artiste. I'm sorry.
Se ha desestabilizado un poco.
en le touchant, en fait, il s'est un peu déréglé. Prends le micro, c'est peut-être mieux.
We're having some technical issues right now.
Voilà, ok. Et donc on a travaillé avec une artiste qui est comédienne mais aussi plasticienne, qui s'appelle Audrey Dereau, une artiste belge, à qui on a demandé de réaliser tout un travail avec des enfants, principalement des enfants entre 7 et 8 ans. On a été dans beaucoup de classes pour aller collecter en fait toute la matière pour faire une exposition. Et là, elle a demandé aux enfants de travailler sur la notion de volcan.
Para preparar este festival,
To prepare this festival, we always work with an artist who proposes their universe, and this year a classical creator was selected, Audrey Dereau. And Ariel accompanies Audrey to the different schools to create this festival with the kids who are going to participate in it.
Chercher, explorer leur paysage intérieur et collecter les jaillissements d'histoire, bonne chance, et de sentiments qui ont été le socle de l'exposition.
eso es un poco difícil de traducir.
This is rather tricky to translate, but the artist seeks the kids and try to collect their stories and the myths that they create, and this is then serves as the basis for the festival itself.
Trouver une part d'eux-mêmes dans notre lieu.
Cuando los niños venían al festival, pues
So if the children go to the festival, then they can find themselves, or they can see things that they themselves have created in different points of the spectacle, of the show.
Mélanie et Ariel, elle travaille pour les petits, les maternelles et primaires, et moi, c'est pour les adolescents.
Mélanie trabaja
Melanie, as I mentioned, works for young people, but between 12 and 18 years of age, so preteen, teen.
Rencontres, de médiation pour pouvoir sensibiliser les adolescents à découvrir un spectacle.
hay una parte de
There's one part of the programming, or much of Melanie's work has to do with mediation, so organizing the meetings between the schools and the artists, the companies, the performing companies, and the children, or young people, I should say.
C'était pas du tout le même, c'est pas grave.
Attends, on revient.
La proposition, c'est de créer des relations avec les professeurs pour trouver les bonnes portes d'entrée pour découvrir un spectacle. Parfois, c'est recevoir un artiste en classe, parfois, c'est une rencontre après spectacle, et parfois, c'est créer avec les artistes.
Un ejemplo de proyecto No, la gran parte de la programación de
Much of the daytime and nighttime show programming for adolescents is carried out together with the adolescents in the performances and encouraging the students to go to the theatre and discover new works. In terms of mediation, it's a matter of having access, of practicing and creating, and helping these young people to develop an interest in the performing arts.
Exemple de projet qui est un projet où on a participé, qui est le Festival de l'horreur, et on a participé avec des adolescents et des artistes pour créer des personnages dans le théâtre, et vous allez voir les photos.
Cada año organizamos un festival de
Every year we organize a terror festival with inviting 200 students from different schools, and they are the ones who will create the spectacles with the directors, and in that way they can then transform the theater and make it an absolutely brilliant performance.
Y aquí los estudiantes de diseño de moda trabajan.
So the students for fashion design work together with the people to create the costumes and create the characters. And this is art and expression during the festival. This project enables students to go beyond or transcend the theoretical framework and be able to participate in a public event. So they enjoy this and they learn a great deal in a very short period of time.
Alors, en fait, on voulait aussi vous dire que la médiation est vraiment une part importante avec les enfants et les adolescents. Et donc, autour des spectacles, vous allez voir après, il y a ce qu'on appelle les espaces de rencontre.
Para Melanie, una de las cosas más importantes.
One of the most interesting things
Prestar especial atención.
Has to do with paying special attention to the meetings of the between the audiences and the performing artists.
Pour partager ce qu'ils ont, poser des questions.
Los artistas van al.
The artists, the performing artists, go to the schools during class hours to meet the students.
A veces hay como talleres.
And sometimes there are workshops that are taking place with respect to the theme of the show that's being organized. And we also organize technical visits where the students can discover everything that goes on behind the scenes.
Au théâtre et expliquer les codes du théâtre.
También tenemos mucha atención para la gente.
We also pay close attention, of course, to those people who are first-time theater goers.
Pratiquer avec un artiste sa discipline.
Y los talleres son cada vez.
The workshops have to do with the performing artist's discipline in particular, so that the students can discover the issue.
On a un groupe d'enfants, d'une dizaine d'enfants qui voient 6-7 spectacles tout au long de l'année. Et à chaque sortie, ils sont avec une animatrice qui, après, fait tout un atelier avec eux sur la thématique du spectacle pour explorer une discipline artistique ou explorer, en tout cas, la grande idée du spectacle.
Ariel organizó
Ariel organized a project of 8 different shows for 8 children throughout the year that have to deal with the topic that the performances are addressing.
Après le spectacle, pour aller un peu plus loin dans la discipline artistique qui a été explorée dans la représentation.
Y se organiza lo mismo.
And the same thing is organized for the parents to subsequently foster conversation between the children and their parents with respect to what they've seen.
Y se organizan muchas meriendas donde
A lot of afternoon snacks are organized, so to speak, where the participants can share what they have experienced.
Cette année, on fait aussi des projets plus longs sur différents rendez-vous, les projets participatifs.
durante el año se hacen
Throughout the year, there are longer projects, participative projects.
el arte al colegio, por ejemplo, es un arte.
Art in the school, this will take place during the same school throughout the year, and they have a series of workshops. We also have a cycle of conferences for the teachers to help them to have a more educational perspective and to be able to do a better job perhaps accompanying the children in their discovery of the performing arts.
El colegio de los espectadores
The school for the audiences, and this is basically to give them an idea of what they might propose in the area of the performing arts, and following up on the creations. So we have some artists and companies that accompany the groups throughout the year, and they, in that way, accompany the young people who've participated, and so the participants, the school kids, can accompany the artists for a long time. So a preparatory class, this is what I do. It's for 8 students between 12 and 18 years of age, and we prepare them for the conservatories. These are young people who often come from areas where culture is not a main priority.
Qui est un petit pays.
somos de Bélgica, que es un país muy pequeñín.
We are from Belgium, a very small country.
2 langues différentes, les 2 principales langues. On a
sur,
le flamand et le français.
En el sur, donde ves la flecha.
In the south, where you see the arrow, we speak French, and in the north, Flemish.
Le français et Namur qui est pointé là. Dans la partie francophone, il y a plus d'une centaine de compagnies qui créent pour le jeune public, et on a une tradition du jeune public qui est là depuis longtemps. Donc ça fait longtemps que les enfants voient des spectacles, que les compagnies vont dans les écoles, que les écoles viennent dans les théâtres.
Tenemos como más
We have more or less 100 companies and theater groups that are more specialized for young people and children.
Il y a 2 moments forts pour voir les spectacles qui sont créés par ces compagnies.
y cada año hay.
And every year there are 2 key times during the year where all of these shows can be seen.
Où sur une semaine, on voit une quarantaine de spectacles qui sont les spectacles qui vont pouvoir être présentés aux écoles.
Un poco como el FETEN.
It's a bit like FETEN. There's a festival in August in Huy, which is a city, where more or less 40 or 50 shows can be seen that address specifically young people and children.
Une trentaine de spectacles qui sont présentés.
Y lo mismo en el periodo.
The same thing during Christmas time in Brussels.
National en Wallonie également, où à ce moment-là on peut programmer des spectacles hors Belgique.
Y hay algunos festivales así, pero
And there are other smaller festivals. Because we're a small country, the proposal, of course, is less grand, perhaps, than it might be for Spain. And if we've come here to FETEN, it's because, inasmuch as Brussels is a European capital,
Ponen un país en adelante.
they select one country to be positioned in the fore, and for 2026 it will be Spain. And so we would like to be able to bring 1, 2, 3, 5 performing arts companies to celebrate that year. So thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, compañeros. Ahora
Thanks, dear colleagues. We are going to go for a break now. It is very close to where we are. We need to go out of the building and we will tell you where to go. I hope that you will enjoy it, and we will be back in half an hour. Thank you.
Il faut que tu t'arrêtes. Hola, vale. Vale, pues ya estamos de vuelta.
We are back. I hope you have enjoyed the break with coffee. And we are all together with Gonzalo Moreno from ACITEG Spain. And we are going to share with you some reflections. We believe the common points between the different projects. And then afterwards, we would like to give you the floor. I know that you have many reflections to share with us, that you want to get more information about some of the projects, and therefore we have the opportunity to do so, and you can ask them questions and you can start a conversation with them. I would like to thank FETEN for creating this space. Thanks to all the projects that are here with us today. I believe they are really interesting and inspiring. We have so many questions to ask you. We would like to have more details, and I would like to ask you two things globally, and then I will have some individual questions. But I would like to give the floor also to the public. And well, we have seen that all the projects in different ways, they have a relationship with schools. And I wanted to know, what is your perspective from the different projects in Namur? I believe that you are specifically working with schools, but also Ralph is working with schools, and Tanya too. And I would like to know how you are organizing this. I believe it is very interesting. Also in Chile, you are working in these regulations, and I believe this is something that we also need to do. And I would like to ask you if you can give us more details about your relationship with schools and how you are articulating this relationship. Microphone, you can give the microphone to the one who wants to start. I will try to speak Spanish. We, in ACITEG Finland, we are not working with schools directly, but cultural centers do. And therefore, they are organizing programs for schools throughout the year. They have a good contact with teachers, and they invite students to see different shows. They have workshops, they have days for families. And therefore, they have a very, very strong link with schools. And in Bravo, what we do is that we have projects. In the last festival, for example, we have worked together with the students from the Theatre Academy in Finland, and they were organizing different projects. They were seeing different performances at the festival. They prepared an installation that was based on these performances, and also they organized their own performance, and it was presented at a cultural center in the center of the city. But what we really wanted to do in this work with the schools, we wanted to do it more. We wanted to organize a festival, Sturge in Germany. They have this festival where they are working with the schools throughout the year. So they have a project, specific project, that is organized throughout the year, and we wanted to do something similar in our festival. Maybe someone else wants to share something?
So there are several layers to the work that we do with schools. So if I start with the SPARS project and the Perform Europe project within the SPARS partnership that we developed. So we toured a show for 0 to 5-year-olds, or maybe 2 to 5-year-olds, from Art for Action Cookie, which I talked about in the presentation, and in the UK we we put the show into a community setting, so it wasn't put into a school specifically. So we wanted the parents, the carers to come with the children to be part of the activity. We have associate partners, one in Norway. I don't know if you've heard something called the cultural school bag or the cultural rucksack, wherein I think there's a similar system in Latvia as well, where every school will promote an activity. In those situations, I think that the shows are placed rather than there is a menu, because it's a very structured programme. And in the UK, there is a crisis in funding in education. There is a crisis in arts funding. So to build a relationship with schools in the UK is really problematic, because there is this focus on literacy and on numeracy, and the relationship with culture is kind of squeezed out of the curriculum. So in my own organisation, we have a specialism where we work with 0 to 5-year-olds, and we work in nurseries and we work in preschool settings. And the emphasis is on taking an artist into a setting for maybe 10 weeks. In some situations, we put an artist into a setting for a year. This is a little bit different to the SPARS project. And we also were part of a national project where we were commissioning dance for early year settings. And there's a choreographer called Takeshi Matsumoto. He made a really beautiful show called Club Origami. And when that show was being researched, he went into settings to work with children in a participatory, in a collaborative way, to explore ideas before the show was made. So it felt like there was a strong collaboration in the making of the piece. So there are many different. I mean, the older age group, we have very few specialist dance teachers, theatre teachers in schools for the older age group. So it's a real problem at the moment.
Just briefly in English, I want to mention one program in Finland called Art Tester, which is the biggest art program in Finland, working in the field of art for young audiences. And what they do is that every 8th grader can have 2 art experiences during the year, and they travel around country, and they pay all these travels as well. So like Finland is a big country, so people from Lapland can come to Helsinki, the 8th graders from Lapland can come to Helsinki and see performances. So this is something, and what they have done in the field in Finland is that they have really, because they have this pre-work and after-work. So the work that is done in the schools before coming to see the performance, and the work that is done after in the performances. And this is something has been quite now elaborated into Finnish art scene. So this is something that we try to do as well. So there would be this pre-work and after-work before the performance. So, and I think I always want to mention this because I want this to continue. It's a very expensive program, and I hope in this crisis that we are experiencing also in Finland, where they cut from everything. They already got the governmental funding from this program, but they received private funding. But I really want that to continue, and it's a good example how things can be done.
Bueno, in Chile, we have some support lines. There is one that is funding projects that are being developed in art community and schools. And most of the projects are linked to the different schools. We need to think about schools as cultural centers. When schools are not being used by children, these schools are available to develop different creative experiences in the classrooms. I believe this is a challenge that has positive and negative aspects. We also need other kinds of support. We need to promote the educational part of it. the classroom has to be something different. The classroom has to be something linked to experiences, but we have two lines that are working with classrooms. We have different projects also that are thinking about these schools as cultural centers, where we can use schools when kids are not there. Children also need to be at home. And institutions are also linked to people, linked to schools, and we need to use these spaces. This is a challenge, and this is what we are doing in Chile. Thank you.
Sí. Contar de qué manera articuláis el trabajo con los...
Maybe you can share with us how you are organizing your work with schools.
Une brochure pour les enfants du maternel et du primaire, et une brochure pour le secondaire.
Tenemos dos.
We have two leaflets, folletos. Two leaflets for early childhood and primary schools, preschool and primary school, and we have another leaflet for secondary schools.
Como es una ciudad bastante pequeña.
Namur is a small city, and we've been doing this for years now. So we have good contact with different schools, and it is quite easy to organize these encounters and these visits.
Oui, c'est ça. Es algo que es tan normal.
It's something that we've been doing for years, and teachers and children are every day at our cultural center. They are always coming to the cultural center.
De alguna manera, pues también hablan mucho entre.
And when there is one good performance, teachers speak among themselves and they share the performances that are interesting for them. So teachers share the performances that are interesting for them.
Jeunes publics au mois d'août sont en fait financés en partie par la fédération, et donc on ne demande pas grand-chose aux enfants et aux jeunes pour venir.
A nivel también de.
Funding. We have a FETEN, kind of FETEN in Namur also, in Ui, sorry, not in Namur, in Ui. And the performances are funded by the French community. Therefore, when we program these performances in our cultural center, we get funds from this French community, and therefore children and youth don't have to pay to go to the performances, so they have to pay a very small amount. This is very nice, this idea that they feel at home at your cultural center. Families and children, they feel at home at your center. This is very nice.
On trouve que c'est important d'en faire quelque chose d'exceptionnel, que la sortie soit exceptionnelle et que du coup, ce soit vraiment la relation entre l'adulte qui accompagne l'enfant. Et donc on fait aussi très attention aux tranches d'âge. Un spectacle à partir de 6 ans, on ne va pas accepter les plus jeunes parce que par rapport à l'écoute, c'est différent. Et pour que la relation soit belle dans la salle avec le public, il y a ce respect aussi à avoir.
Ariel le gusta organizar las
Ariel likes to organize things as something special, a very special moment, for example, and she wants the venue to be ready for families and for children. And also she's very careful with age groups, to have a good environment, to have a good atmosphere. She's not going to have children that are 12 years old with children that are 6 years old. So they need to be all in the same age group. We are thinking about that in Spain. When we think about quality, maybe we can have a smaller audience, but this has a positive impact, and we have a better experience if we have very limited age groups participating in the performance. I believe this is linked to the management, that we love what we are doing, that we are really careful with these performances that we show. I don't know if we do it as well in Spain, but in Belgium, for example, if we have something for youth audiences, we always have the age group up to 10 years old. It's like with the cinema, with movies. No, we have age groups. Yes, in Spain we are working on that. We have a big debate also about this, about age. Gonzalo, as you know. In schools, we are working in that area, but yes, we do have age groups. In FETEN, and also with programmers, we classify it with different colors. We have different colors for different age groups. I have another question for you. Ralph was talking about it in his project, whether you are assessing, whether you are creating toolkits for assessing performances. Gabriela is not doing that in Chile, but I would like to know if the projects that you are developing in the different institutions, I would like to know whether you have any resources available, because some of the questions are very interesting. Maybe in SPAs, these toolkits, is it possible to see them? Are they public, or are they organized? How are they organized, these toolkits?
Go to the SPARS website. If you go to the SPARS website, it's a little bit complicated, but if you scroll down, then it says discover the old SPARS website, and if you click on that, there is a resources section, and there is a film. There's a 15-minute film of the first SPARS project. There is a copy of the evaluation report for the first SPARS project, and then there are toolkits from each of the partners in the first project. So there is toolkits in Italian, Romanian, Estonian, Lithuanian. So these are all free downloads, and the idea for the next project, for the current project, is that all the partners, we will also develop toolkits for each of the partner countries which are kind of missing. And from my point of view, the evaluation with children is a little more complicated. The form we ask people to fill in asks maybe 8 or 9 questions. It takes 2 minutes. But we don't really we would have to think the value of the evaluation is that we ask the same questions for everybody, and each year for 3 years, so we can see if there is a pattern. And we work with a professional evaluator in the UK to develop the evaluation that we use. Is that okay?
Sí, creo que es un reto.
It is a challenge that we face when we organize these kind of projects. I believe evaluation is key. We are focusing on different areas. We are trying to develop things in different areas, and I believe it is really interesting to get that information. I don't know if in Namur, yeah.
Sorry, one last comment is the evaluator that I've worked with. At the very beginning, I worked with her for 20 years, and she said you have to have evaluation at the very beginning of the project. Before the project starts, you ask yourself, what are the things that we want to find out? And before that, I used to not take evaluation very seriously. I used to think it's a pain to, why do we have to ask? It's invasive. We have to ask, the audience wants to come enjoy the show. They don't want to fill a form in, you know, it's kind of, it gets in the way of the experience. But my feeling now is that one of the things that we have to do in my work is we have to make the invisible visible. The work we do has a very low priority, it has very low status. So the evaluation, the research, the advocacy is a really important part of telling more people. And if I can tell you, or the politician or the funder, that if we want sustainable touring, then we bring the artist to the audience. And if I can say the audience, half of the audience, 2/3 of the audience is less than 5 kilometers, it says two things. One is we are reaching local people. And secondly, the carbon footprint of this work is maybe part of a sustainable future.
Yo quisiera
I wanted to say something a little bit different. I was reading your book, The Culture is Not an Industry, and if we also think about festivals and the capacity to program smaller performances, I want to bring together these two ideas because we need statistics, we need to have impact assessment, and in Chile, we need to assess statistically the social value. And we need to ask people, we need to ask the audiences, but also we need to ask everyone, what do they think about that experience and how we can analyze that. And this is one of the main challenges that we face. And on the other hand, if we think about programs, we are not a festival, but if we were a festival, the early childhood performance, the maximum would be 14 babies with 2 family members. But if I'm selling tickets, maybe this is not interesting to organize because it is only for a very limited audience. So we need to analyze all these things, and we need to consider whether to organize or to program this kind of performance that is a more premium performance. And therefore, we need to consider these two aspects. Festivals and projects need to have these kind of evaluations. But if we think that culture is not an industry, we need to take that into account. When we talk about budgets for culture, for example, when we have right-wing parties or far-right parties, we need to take that into account. If we have data, if we have figures, maybe they will need to take them into account. And therefore, I believe we need to make an effort, we need to assess, we need to have an impact assessment, and we need to work on different areas. And well, I was bringing together these two ideas.
Igual si te puedes hacer un...
Nous, on a surtout une relation de confiance en fait qu'on a établie avec le public, et donc on a nos brochures, nos programmes qui sont envoyés aux écoles, aux familles, mais en fait ils nous font confiance, c'est surtout ça, parce qu'ils savent pas ce qu'ils viennent voir, donc ils nous font confiance. Pour les écoles, il y a parfois des dossiers qui existent, des dossiers d'accompagnement avec des clés du spectacle qui sont envoyées avant, à exploiter après éventuellement par les enseignants. Et puis selon la programmation, on juge si c'est utile d'aller avant dans la classe, à la rencontre des élèves, pour leur donner des clés également, pour leur faire goûter autrement ce qu'ils vont voir. Mais voilà, c'est quelque chose qui est plus sensitif. Il n'y a pas de systématisme qui existe. Ah oui, pardon.
Lo que contaba Ariel es que no hay...
What Ariel was saying is that project evaluation has not been systematized. It's not been standardized as yet. We work to a great degree with the teachers' trust, so to speak. They trust Ariel and Mariel. They have kind of an aura. They're basically references. They've been doing this for 20 years, and so they have both experience and expertise, and this is what inspires that trust in the teachers. We have two projects, one at the beginning of the season, where we look at everything that's been scheduled, and then a second one at the end of the season, well, February, more or less, I guess. And then when there are issues that are being addressed that might be more sensitive, perhaps, for instance, they may organize a meeting with the teacher to determine how to undertake the issue in as fair a manner as possible and how to work around that. But of course, that will depend on the issue.
En famille, la plupart des personnes qui viennent sont abonnées et donc viennent voir 2, 3, 4 spectacles différents. Donc, ils rentrent aussi dans une dynamique.
And the families that subscribe might have 5, 6, 7 shows throughout the year. And that's kind of a loyalty building exercise.
Sí.
Tiene una consulta para vosotros. No me ha quedado claro si...
I have a question for you. I'm not sure if in Namur, if that's a public or space, a private space. What relationship does it have with the administration? It's a public entity. It's located in the area around the city, kind of peri-urban. It's not the most touristic area of the city. There's a lot of immigration there, a lot of immigrants, and there are many schools in the area. And so they come at midday, or they go at lunchtime, or they go in the afternoon to play football. If it's raining, they can be inside that way. So from Tuesday until Sunday, it's open all day to everyone. And yes, of course, it depends on the public institution there. Yes, the Wallonian Federation, the French-speaking Federation. So it's much more important than the theater, because the theater functions selling tickets and what have you. So we receive an envelope, if you will, which is a certain amount with mediation in theatre for young people, the different exhibits that we have. We also have concerts, so there are lots of things going on there. And that's a little bit of what Gabriela was talking about, culture as a right in society. So I wanted to ask a question from the relationship is with, the microphone keeps cutting out, something about the relationships with performing arts, perhaps, and the more rural populations, and the relationship with the administrations, and to what degree is there a dialogue and accompanying, do they accompany this sector? Yeah, in the case of RAL, it was really nice when they said that the companies had to be quite flexible, but that's true. I'm sure that as a creator, opening those doors to have your creations to be able to reach those areas that might otherwise be more difficult to reach. And so making this possible is an important issue. Now, communication. Sure, when we're talking about the fact that you're talking about very different societies, and what that process is like, I'm sure that depending on where you are, oftentimes you're starting a relationship with very different points of view, and just a little bit of what Gonzalo was saying and adding in this extra dimension.
That's a really simple question.
Sorry.
So I'm thinking about the artist's relationship with the community and then the relationship with the administration. I mean, I've been working in my area for 30 years. So we have that kind of stamp of quality when we have where do I start? So the touring system in the UK is broken. So the companies, there's risk averse programming. Theatres have less money, so they program save shows. And more often, they ask artists to have box office splits. So they don't pay a guarantee fee. My sector is very small, but we offer guaranteed fees. So the fees are not so high, but I network in my area with, there are 8 or 9 organisations like mine in the southwest of England. So we network, so the fees are not so high, but we can offer 6 or 7 or maybe 8 performances over a 2-week period. So the real communities that we work with, they trust. We talked about in Namur, the same relationship that is built over time. And each year we have a menu party. So when we develop a new menu, we have maybe 20 or different artist companies, and we have an artistic programming policy. So the program is culturally diverse. We look at the gender, we look at work that is local through to national. We look at different art forms. So we make sure that we hope that there is something for everyone. And in the UK, the social demographic is changing. So with property prices in cities being very high, people now move out of the city into rural areas, so it's like a post-industrial situation where you have incomers, people who move into an area, and you have people living in an area for generations, and there's potentially conflict. House prices go up. So our program is an opportunity for the community to come together in quite a neutral way. It's not political in an overt sense, so they can meet socially. There's a conviviality. So the promoters, they have the artistic aspiration, if you like, to program interesting work. So for us, the relationship with the promoters is absolutely fundamental, and that enables us to reach the audience. And we can take really challenging work into rural areas. So, you know, if a lot of the audience is not receiving culture from another place, then that means that another percentage of the population will travel and see. So you cannot assume when an artist goes into a rural area that they're performing to someone that has never seen a show before. It's just a false reality. The situation with the public administration is really bad. It's really bad. This year, we lost the remaining money that we had from our local government. They had a financial emergency and their arts budget is completely stopped. It's really upsetting for me that we've worked for 30 years, we have a good relationship. And you mentioned, I mean, evaluation, I don't like doing evaluation necessarily. It's good to learn, to say how can we improve what we do, but we have to play a game. And in my country, the arts budget is so small, you have to prove and prove and prove that the little bit of money that you get is worth having, and which is why I would really recommend this book, Culture is Not an Industry, by Justin O'Connor, and it requires a fundamental rethink in the way we think about where culture sits and arts within culture. So, in the UK, the cultural and creative industries was used by the arts as a reason for funding back in the 1980s and the 1990s. The reality is that the arts within cultural and creative industries represents 1 or 2% of the growth. The idea that arts, culture is income generator, makes jobs. When you look at COVID, look at the energy crisis, so many creatives are leaving the industry in the UK. And so we need to be confident about the innate right and the innate need for us to be creative. So on the one hand, we play the game to produce the statistics. But for me, we have a lack of creative thinking in the UK at the moment. People still have this overhang of thinking the same way. And when we were being funded by the municipality, I always had to make the economic argument. I would say every £1, every euro you give, I will multiply by 30. And this was the argument that gave us the money, but it's a false argument.
It's I want a take on that a bit, because like Finland, yes, many countries is facing the biggest cuts on the art sector in a very long time, maybe in history, and so the art organizations and professionals are trying to justify in many different ways why not to cut. And of course, one is this evaluation of or the impact and how many people does it employ and so on. So working with the numbers, and then also like there is this interesting argument in Finland when it comes to art as well, that they are promoting is something like as a culture that we need to protect in this dangerous situation. So as something like a mental reserve in case, I don't know, Russia invades or somehow. So we need to protect the culture that we have in this small country, and it is kind of like base for our security and base for our existing and so on. And this is something that's being used, and it's very, I don't have the answer, I don't know what's the best, but there's very little at the moment, very little talk about the art itself and the content of art, and what like in generally like the conversation is really about it's really in this industry language, and maybe that's what it's needed, and they are kind of pushing artists to become more like entrepreneurs, and to so you can get all the governmental funding, and the art would be more like a business field as any, and I think it's going to have maybe severe impacts on what's going to happen in the art field, but then. Yeah, so I think this is such an interesting thematics. It would be interesting to talk about this more, but about the question in itself. So I wanted to tell you about how we function and how we reach the professionals, because Asites Finland is really like a mediator. So we have like we have the cities that are big, and they have their own communication departments. So we have like meetings with them. We come up with the general like a communication plan, and then we have like meetings with the producers, and they will actually, and then we provide the materials, and they will do the communication within them. So that's how they reach the local audiences, and as such, I think we have like a good possibility to actually reach the public in there, and this means that I'm now losing my track of thoughts, but it means that our festival kind of like the money and everything and how do we communicate comes from so various sectors. So we get, for example, like funding from the state and funding from the cities and private funding, and this enables us to function and to pay proper fees and bring, like as you said, also challenging words to these districts and meet the people there. And this also means that we have to cater many different kind of target audiences, and so communication is really in the core of the work that we do in Acites Finland and in Bravo Festival.
En Belgique, les centres culturels sont financés par la Fédération Wallonie-Bruxelles, par la région Wallonne et par les villes qui sont sur le, par les villes également.
Los centros culturales en Bélgica.
In Belgium, the cultural centers comes from the federation between the Brussels and the Wallonian government.
Alors ça, c'est dans l'idéal. Maintenant, on vient d'avoir un nouveau gouvernement. On ne sait pas comment les choses vont bouger. On sait qu'on ne va pas avoir d'augmentation. Or, la vie augmente, donc ça se complique. Et on a de plus en plus un problème aussi avec les transports pour emmener les enfants, les jeunes au théâtre, où on ne remplace plus les chauffeurs de bus. Et donc voilà. Donc quelque part, c'est en train de...
La falta de dinero.
So the lack of money is noticed more and more with every year that goes by. But Ariel and Melanie's work, for instance, means that the school bus drivers are not substituted. So there's schools that don't come to the theatre simply because there's no bus to take them to the theatre.
Moins en moins de financement pour les créations, pour les artistes aussi. Donc le secteur est très fragilisé aussi pour créer et soutenir les artistes à garder leur métier d'acteur.
It's also difficult to support the artistic creation because there's less and less money to do so. However, we are holding our faith. We're keeping the faith, that's it. So this might be a good time to introduce all of you. It's like theater. So one part is as important as the other part, those of us on stage and those of you sitting in the chairs. So whoever has something to say or a question to ask? Yeah, we have another roaming mic.
Omar, si está bien también que te presentes. Sí, y así también.
Yeah, if you would introduce yourself as well, that would be helpful. I am the director and choreographer at a dance company, but I'm also a member of the board of an organization in Spain. ACITER, sorry. So this has stimulated the reflection, I think, that has to do with the political and social aspect and the artists and how they are involved. So there's a very delicate time at which financial situation becomes very fragile. And there are cutbacks for performing arts almost across the globe. And I've been thinking for a very long time, on the one hand, documentation. You have to document every single project. This is essential because we think that art and good faith and faith in social transformation, but if we don't have the documentation, if we can't prove that performing arts are necessary in our societies, it's just mere entertainment. And then training would be another issue. And for artists, this is very important in thinking and the ideology of the artists. We need to know what they think. They think beyond that, not just in the artistic part, which is fantastic, but also this other part, which reflects on our culture and what might happen in our society, and how artists are key players in this society. But again, we have to prove it. We have to be able to quantify it with numbers. And quite honestly, we have to store this very carefully in order to be able to confront these kinds of situations, which are the ones that are ruining human thought. Arts are supposed to make the world more humane.
In Belgique, le secteur jeune, en Belgique, le secteur jeune public est regroupé. Il y a des fédérations. Il y a la fédération des artistes, qui est la chambre de théâtre pour l'enfance et la jeunesse, où ils se regroupent et ils parlent beaucoup ensemble. Et il y a Aspropro, association des programmateurs professionnels, et voilà. Et ensemble, on essaye de voir comment faire bouger les choses pour que le jeune public garde une place importante en fédération Wallonie-Bruxelles.
Hay una cámara que se llama la cámara de...
There's
una cámara que se llama Cámara del Teatro para la...
a chamber which is called the Chamber of Theatre for Children and Young People, where all of the companies that perform for young audiences can belong.
Hay otra asociación que se llama...
And another association, which is the Association of Programmers, and amongst them they hold a lot of meetings, they have a lot of debate.
Para remontar hacia los ministros y los...
To try to elevate the dialogue to the ministers or as high as we can. And in Belgium, a great deal of effort is being made on the part of the artists and the programmers in order to be able to stir things up so that they will rise to the top and hopefully reach the higher echelons of power.
Comment on this quickly, because even though I see a lot of great process happening in the performing arts for young audiences, really great work done, and I think the professionalism is getting higher. What is, at least in Finland, is that when the state funding is going down, it affects especially the performing arts for young audiences, because they get less ticket revenue, and they are more dependent on the state funding. So I think this is really the time that the whole sector needs to think there is actual change happening that is threatening the democracy in our countries, that is threatening the free art, creative thought, and it's happening in a way that it's maybe hard for us even to notice the impacts that it's having on us. So I think now really we need to be quite innovative and really trust in collaboration and thinking about new ways how to form ourselves, because I think in Finland really the structures are changing, because there is less and less money coming from the governmental sources, and those normally were kind of distributed more on a wider scale. So now there is also this thought of excellence, which is great, but it can lead in many ways, but it can lead into that there are only very few projects that are being supported, and this way you need to somehow restructure the field, and I think collaboration is in the core of this.
So two questions, not answers, but two comments from me in return. One is that there is this game that we play. The statistics, blah, 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 and we have to play the game. While this is the current paradigm is in place, we have to do that. But we don't have to believe that that is the only way of looking and situating what we do. So we have to remember the fundamental need to create, to express ourselves, and to narrow in our own minds that the only thing that is important is money and the impact. There are so many studies about economic impact. There are so many studies about social impact. We don't need, in a sense, it's not about data, it's not about evidence, it's about belief systems. And the question around training, I think artists, as individuals, groups, an artist has an imperative to make. And I don't think it's correct to impose. I mean, if someone wants to make a piece of work about something in particular that has no political context to it, I think that is the right of the artist to do that. Or if they have a very particular subject they wish to make the work about. But my feeling is that it's a mistake to segregate, to isolate arts, culture from the rest of society. And to think, I'm an artist, I don't care about the bus drivers, I don't care about the whether there are cuts in education. All I'm interested in is in my work, my world, as an isolated. This is where cooperation. We need to think about. In the old days, in the UK, you could get unemployment benefit. This was a social security net that no longer exists, and this was really valuable for artists. Because if you had the social, but it wasn't just for artists; it's for everybody. So we need to think of our sector within the global situation. And my sense is we need a new paradigm. Neoliberalism, the way of extraction, of exploitation, is not working. So while we're in this interregnum is the word he uses. So we have to persist with providing the evidence and giving the data, but I do think we need to meet and work with other people that think like in a different way.
Yes, hello. I'm Biruta Banevičiūtė from Dansema Dance Theatre from Lithuania, and I'm also representing ACTEJ Lithuania. And I want to thank you for inspiring this whole meeting, a lot of ideas. But my point, what I wanted to react and share is to this sentence that there is no money for culture. So from my experience, there is money for culture, it's just distributed in the wrong way. And always when artists say that there is no money, I always raise the question, what you have done to change the situation? So what you have done that those money would appear on political level and on any other level. And I would like to share the experience what we had. So I'm also a professor at Educational University, and I worked at school as a dance teacher. And when we had meetings with the new government, we always go and meet in the parliament, people for culture, also for the Ministry of Culture, Ministry of Education. So every time with the new election, we start from zero, but we always go and talk. And then I think 3 years ago, we still were asking politicians like why there is no obligatory dance class in schools if there is music obligatory and visual arts. So we said dance is also needed for kids who are kinesthetic thinking. And they were saying there is no money for that. And but suddenly they gave money for the third class for physical education, like for sports. And I said, how that comes? So then we started again to talk with politicians, and it's about also finding the right time and the right people. So suddenly we talked with the head of cultural committee in parliament, who happened to be in a ruling party. So he talked with the Minister of Education, And then we had really big what do you call it, like not strike, but when dance teachers and dance artists united, we wrote a petition and we had 1,500 signatures from dance. And in Lithuania, we have less than 3 million people. So suddenly politicians said, oh, there are so many dance teachers in Lithuania, so many dance artists, like where you were before. So suddenly we got 2 million euros to have obligatory dance class in primary schools all over Lithuania. So it's just about what we do as artists to change situation on the sentence, there is no money for culture. Thank you.
Voy a hacer una pequeña intervención mientras el micrófono llega a ti, y haciendo eco de lo que
linked to what you were saying and the beliefs that we have, we need to think about the different areas or parts of culture. We have art, we have politics, and this is linked to what she was saying, because artists and teams, they need to be creative, they need to get funds, they need to convince the politician, they need to do everything, artists. And I agree with what you were saying. We need to be part of our society. Our struggle is part of our society. This is true. And in Chile, we don't have this point of view. And artists are in a very difficult situation. And we don't have a cooperation among us without this struggle. Without working together, we cannot change the situation. Therefore, I believe that when we are talking about funds, when we are talking about cuts at a global level, we need to do something all together. In Chile, we have a relationship with the state through these associations. The government is not going to talk to you individually, it's going to talk to everyone, to groups, and therefore we need to get organized. Debate is also key. We need to raise awareness in the different ministries. We need to work with the Ministry for Culture, but also with the Ministry for Foreign Relations. What are we going to do with them? We need to work with them. Everything is political. Everything is linked together. And we need to get organized, we need to work together, we need to cooperate, and we need to participate in these political debates. We need to have meetings with politicians, as she was saying. We need to work together as an association, and it is the only way forward. In Chile, we have these associations that are doing things individually, but I think that we need to do an effort, we need to work together, all together, and we need to change our beliefs. In Chile, we thought that the neoliberal system was tested in Chile during the dictatorship, and it was going to disappear afterwards, but that was not the case. We see it everywhere now. And therefore, we need to reflect. We need to be more participative. We need to do more advocacy. And at the same time, this is very complicated because we need to do everything at the same time. We need to work and to create teams to do so. But I believe we need to be we need to attract more people, and we need to share these beliefs. Hello, Ivana. I'm from Croatia, and I wanted to share with you how things are done in Croatia, or at least my point of view. I am an organizer of a festival that is called International Festival for Children, and this year we are organizing our 65th anniversary, and we are one of the 7 main festivals in Croatia. And in Croatia, we have the support of the Ministry for Culture. And I was listening to you coming from a small city. Croatia is a small country. We have 4 million inhabitants. And I am organizing a festival in a city that has 35,000 inhabitants, and therefore it is a quite big festival. And in the last few years, we have had to face a big crisis, but in Croatia, we are getting more and more funds for this festival. The Gijón government is giving us more money, and also the Ministry for Culture. And therefore, we have a slogan in the Ministry for Culture in my country that says, "Culture for everyone." And now I wanted to say something about what Ralph was saying. He is working in these rural areas. And in our festival, our festival is organized in a city, and we program almost everything in the city. But when I get an artist and I'm paying the flight and everything, it is not just for one performance, and the same artist is going to different places. We go to rural areas, and he is doing a performance there, but it has to be a very simple performance. And also we have a project in our Ministry for Culture. Before organizing this festival, I was working as a teacher, and we had a program that was called Backpack Full of Culture. And this means that I was working in a school in an island that was quite isolated. And I participated in this project. They sent us artists to come to our school to do the performances. And today, when I see the situation in the different countries, I realize that the situation in Croatia is quite good, because the ministry is really supporting us. We are working on arts, and we are working with children. I don't know whether I have explained what I wanted to say, but I hope so. Thank you.
Sí, bebé. Sí, estamos esperando un poquito también para que las compañeras.
I see that the coffee has given you lots of energy. Good. Good. It's great to see you all participating. Coffee, strong coffee in Gijón. Bebe de Suárez is my name. I am an artist. I live in Germany, but I am from Brazil.
To be clearer, and my English is better than my Spanish. I am on the board of FETEN International, and I'm also a partner on the SPARS Plus project. And I am surprised that Ralph is kind of relativating the importance of the evaluation at the SPARS project, because he's the one going after everybody. You must do the evaluation, make sure. And actually, I am a big fan of this evaluation. What you get, it is so simple. In the end, it's so well thought. It's a fake simplicity. Of course, it's complex, but the information that you get is really interesting. So different perspectives, and we also are our symposium that will happen in October. It is about researching the funding that exists in Europe for rural areas, and this, for me, it is very interesting. In FETEN International, we got funding, wonderful, from the European Union now, and we have 5 lines of research, different aspects of theater and performance for young audience, and one of them, my favorite one, is the value of TYA. So the value of theater for young audiences. And the more we dig into this research, the more we understand how this is the future for the advocacy of the work for children and young audiences. It is really something that takes it to a level of the same importance than health and education for children. It's funny that you say we have 18 national centers, each one has a mission. The mission of ACITEJ International is to make sure that the right of the child to access to work, to performing arts is guaranteed. So this is our mission. Of course, the companies and the artists and everybody will profit from this, but we think about the child. And then when we come about what Gabriela said, it's difficult in South America to justify putting public money for 14 babies and 2 parents each. But I am a little bit like, it's like, for me, it's like, it's also the right of a child to see shows with more than 3 people on stage, because there is never a mathematical formula that you can produce a show like the operetta yesterday, 12 people on stage. No, children also should be able to see. So the public money needs to be there. And for me, the experience on I'll go now back to the rural touring, if you think about the sustainability of the artists, so the fees of the artists have to be in a way that it is possible for the artist to work, to make a living as an artist. And actually, it is not even so much money, what we see with our project, with the Perform Europe tours and with the SPARS. And then you can offer shows for 35 in a tent, or for, because the quality of the reception of the child is essential. We cannot, Brazil has the same, Brazil has lots of children. That was the first phrase in the project with Denmark. Brazil has lots of children. So, but you cannot do a show for 800 children. I'm sorry, from the 200, even if it's a large show, there's no quality. But anyway, I would really to really put the importance of the research and the advocacy. These are arguments the whole sector will profit and will, in Chile, in Brazil, in Denmark, you're going to be able to use the same arguments for the right of the child to have access to performing arts. That's.
I completely agree, but I think also we need to put the focus into critical thinking and artistic freedom. I think that's also very, very crucial at this point. But yeah.
So the question about advocacy. So I think that profile, working collaboration, working together to find allies is, when you're a small voice on your own, it's not possible. But when you join a small voice with another small voice, the voice becomes bigger. So with the rural touring, we had 5 partners in the first project. We have 11. We'll create a European network at the end of the project. And if we can grow the network in the UK. I'm part of the National Rural Touring Forum. We have 35 organisations across the UK, in England, Wales and Scotland. And this is an advocacy voice for rural touring. And we have I'm a member of what's called a rural stakeholder group, which is convened by the Arts Council of England. So as part of that group, we commissioned research by the Arts Council into lots of statistics to do with the arts in rural areas. And I think I want to thank the European Union, the Commission, because they have enabled SPARS. I mean, to get the national support for individual countries is a challenge. In Romania, to find money is very, very hard. And so it's really important to think of the value of the European Union. I know it's part of the Creative Europe programme. Intention is to stimulate dialogue and collaboration. And I think without the funding from Creative Europe, the project wouldn't have existed. And in a sort of pan-European respect, organisations, I guess, like Culture Action Europe, like IETM, you know, to join your voice with other voices, it can be complicated because there's a hierarchy within culture, you know. Even within my own world, I occupy low status. So if I'm in the same room as the National Theatre or the London, you know, people in London, they go to several meetings in a day. It takes 1 hour to go from the tube from one meeting to another. For me to go to a meeting in London, it takes me 3.5 hours on the train to get there and 3.5 hours on the train to come back. I can go to maybe 1 or 2 meetings. So, you know, and when you're in a room, everyone knows each other, but they don't know you. So you have to be brave, you have to raise your voice and to speak up. But I think there's a kind of a thread of collaboration and the importance of working together and to feel you have agency, to say, you must give me to the funder. I think you have to have the self-confidence to understand why you do what you do, and and critical thinking, this received thinking about this is the way things are, this is the way things will be, to challenge the prevailing thinking and to have confidence in yourself, to find people like yourself so that you give each other confidence is really important.
Sí, a mí me
I think it is also very important to highlight that associations allow us to think, as you were saying, that we have different levels of participation. We have big festivals and their voice is more important than yours. Then we have other festivals that are smaller. And therefore, I believe we have there a good opportunity. I have public funding, for example, and I have a public role to play. In my festival, for example, we are going to organize a meeting. We are going to talk about a specific issue. Or, for example, if I am a member of a network that gets fund, maybe we can develop a specific project. Because these associations and these reflections are really important. We need to get funds we are getting funds for performances, we get funds for products if we think about industry, but these debate spaces, these meetings to debate are never funded. And therefore, I believe that it is important, if I get funds, for example, if I get public funds, I need to think about my colleagues. I need to open these areas to discuss and to debate. And we need to create these kind of debates. We need to think about internationalization, for example, or we need to see how to create this space to work together, to think together in solidarity. And therefore, we need to think about it. I believe festivals need to do so, need to create these kind of spaces, and we need to create these meeting points that can allow us to talk about the different issues. And we can talk with experts or among experts, but we also need to have members coming from different sectors. As we see in my country, performing arts or theatre, they have more funds if we compare them with circus. And therefore, we need to have a cross-cutting conversation and also a democratic conversation. I believe that, okay, we are going to... We see that the situation in the different countries are different. I'm Michelle Guerra from Mexico. I come from Espiral, and I would love to be a theater director because we started to work with other companies. We have created a festival for children 17 years ago. And together we are working with international companies, and we created another festivals 5 years ago. And now we are trying to work with different companies. The companies that come to Tijuana, they go to different parts of the countries, to our country, sorry. And the public funds that we get, we are using them throughout the country. But in Mexico, the main problem that we have is that when we have a government, when we change government, everything changes. So we got funds from the government, but then when we had a new government, we didn't get any money, even if we were the oldest festival in Mexico. So we see different ideologies and different governments want to decide what to do with the funds. And in Latin America, it's very difficult to get this funding. If you get money from the government, you cannot have tickets. You cannot sell tickets. And when you get public support, you cannot become independent. You cannot get private funding if you are getting public funding. And therefore, the situation is different in the different countries, but also in Mexico, we have a huge centralization in the use of resources, and we need to have a dialogue. We have a dialogue with our coordinator. There is someone that is really interested, but once she will leave, we will need to think again about everything. We will need to present all the different projects again. So we are starting again and again every time we see a new government. So we need to rethink what we are doing every time. We have to work on management, research, publications, every time. Thank you.
Creo que quería Lino.
I believe Lino wanted to say something. This is good because we get to know each other. We know who is working in the different festivals, and this helps us afterwards to talk to each other. Now that you are introducing yourself, this is very interesting because we get to know each other, as I was saying.
For the invitation at first, and thank you also for this meeting because I listen, I know it, very interesting institution activities, and but I have to say something about the big problem of the money. If l'ho spento, it's not the problem of have money, ask money. It always is off. I don't know why. It's okay. And because I wanted to bring our experience. When I arrived in my institution, it's a public institution participated by the region and a lot of municipalities in which we organize theatrical season. At the beginning there was, I arrived at the end of the previous millennium, and I was alone. Why? Because I was the only manager. I have to spend 2 words about myself. I have a degree in the Academy of Theatre and also a degree in law, in economy, the law of the economy. When I began to make the actor, one day a very important director asked me to work with him as his assistant. And so I began to work as manager. I was alone in an institution that received 1 million from the national government and $500,000 from the region. And we had only 2,000 euro from the audience. The first thing I bring in my institution was to employ one person that worked to grow in the audience development. Now we have 2 million euro of tickets, from tickets. You know, in 20 years, of course. What is the suggestion? Another thing. Anyone work on European project at the beginning? Now the 70% of our balance is from European community. We work in different fields. Of course, theater. At the beginning there was not a theater for children. Now there is a responsible. At the beginning I was alone with 2 administrative and 1 director. Now we are 52 employees, full-time. And we have 100 collaborators all over the region. 20 million is around our balance. When I arrived was 3 million. Only to have dimension is not important. My salary is the same from the beginning to now. It's not this important. We bring to our citizens a lot of activity more. Our objective is the growth of the diffusion of the culture in our region. And there was a research, national institution, and the 32% of our children under 14 years go at least one time to the theater and pay a ticket. And we have approved a policy for the growth of the value of the ticket. What is the suggestion? To try to think to our work as an industry. When I began, my degree was as actor. I want only to make the actor, to have the performance. When I went in the institution, my point of view changed, of course. I want to create the opportunity to stabilize everything. For example, I asked 3 years ago, not 4 years ago, I wait 1 year to have the approval, a new office, training office, because we need to train other people and ourselves. I'm director of a school for manager, and we have 15, 20 students each year. It's a 2-year schools, financed by the Ministry of Training, of course. We have a program for the prevention of the come si dice, dipendenza, problem of health of young people. We have employed a psychologist, and we have $500,000 each year to do this. We work a lot in tourism, and we have 2 people employed as because are a specialist for tourism. Our balance for this activity is around 7 million each year. So this is important for us, for all us, to think to our work not only as a project, as a performance, as an artistic idea. It is important maybe that the cultural operator, I believe that I am a cultural operator, but I change my jacket when I hand my idea and I become to implement that idea. I teach at university for 5 years and I learned there how to transfer the knowledge, how to transfer the skills, the competence. We have to teach to do this, to transfer competence, to leave space to other person, to give opportunity to ourselves to grow and to stabilize. Because I believe that culture in general, art in particular, I'm very impressed about your work with children through the art, are the best way to have social and cultural growth in, is the same thing, in my opinion, in all territory. So this is what I think to say to you. Our experience is very good. And consider that at the national level in Italy, we are famous. We change government every year. They change idea in everything. But if you have the capacity to work in an industrial way in all the sectors in which culture and art are important, it's not important that they change idea. You can work at the same. This is our experience. Thank you.
Okay.
Ay, que justo ahora me he despeinado. No, movido el micro, quería decir. Gracias, Lino.
Thank you very much, Lino. So we have to close now because of our schedule, but thank you all for your contributions. And I think starting with the final intervention and kind of to summarize what everyone has said, we really do have to be closing. Is it just a quick point? I just wanted to go back to the past, for instance, and how schools and theaters collaborate in Croatia. It's very natural for us, as the Belgian group mentioned. In Croatia, it's almost mandatory that the children... So we have like different turns, different shifts at school. So the first... we live in a small city. I am an employee of the theater. And we have our production, but we also have theaters for children in other cities. And in fact, at least one or two of the plays, for instance, if you have Cervantes, and you have a play or a work about Cervantes. And a colleague from Mexico, for instance, said that they're constantly changing precedents and what have you. And they have budgetary cutbacks, and things work very different. For instance, 80% of my festival is free of charge for everyone. And if I can compare an ice cream, it costs €3, and a ticket costs 5 or 6, for instance. So I think we have to be sensitive to everyone, and we don't have to justify that money. And some people might think we're very stuck up and we've got lots of money. With a colleague from Italy said, when I had a new director of the festival came, and he's also director of the theater, and the first thing we did was to purchase a van, a minibus, and a truck. And I know that sounds very odd for a theater, but when we have theaters in Zagreb, and we saw that renting a bus or a truck Oh, that eats up half of your budget right there. And you have them only to pick up the stage materials, and it was just cheaper to have one, and in that way we were able to save the money, and we could reinvest that in the production itself. So in short, that's how things work in Croatia. We still have several days ahead of us.
The story that from the Italian colleague, I wasn't sure if I understood the direction that you were saying, but there were two things I was thinking. One is that when we lost our local municipal funding, we asked our audiences, our promoters, what should we do? And one of the options was, can we increase our ticket prices? And so they said yes. We put ticket prices were increased, but our audiences are averaging 80 or 90 people per performance. And without public funding, it's not cost effective. It can't succeed. And the other thing is, I've talked about culture is not an industry, but for me, I have quite an entrepreneurial mind. So the work that I've done, we've worked with tourism, we've worked with countryside, we work with children who are excluded from school for behavioural difficulties, we work with social services, we work with adults, with dance, with older people with dementia. We work with we had funding from a national sport foundation to do a dance project. So the importance of making connection between art, culture, and every aspect of society is really important. But the reason I had to do that because there was no money for art, there was no money for culture. I had to look, and for me, we need to really establish the fundamental need to support art for its own sake as an intrinsic part of what we are, not to have to always go to other people to look for money.
Bueno, pues vamos a tener...
Well, we have plenty of time ahead of us to be able to meet up and converse. And I think we could be here all afternoon. But in fact, it's time to close this section. Yes, I would just like to thank those of you in the audience. And I think this has also been a very good exercise in gathering other people's perspectives and experience. At the end of the day, we're all involved in any number of facets. We're creators, distributors, managers, programmers, institutions. But it's also very interesting for us to all come together. We can learn from one another. We're all kinds of different things, and while it's good to be, specificity is a good thing when addressing one problem or another. But what we are seeing is that we have creation on one hand, contact with the schools. But I think it's really good to have all of these different perspectives and learn from one another. And take advantage of this over the course of these days. Celebrate, get to know each other. So thank you very much. Thank you to all of you who are on stage. And of course, thanking our venue. So thank you very much. Please take advantage of this festival to be able to have mixers, mingle, get to know each other. And so then after the festival, the relationships can continue. So thank you very much.